There's going to be a roll call vote.
Yep. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Monday, September 18th Board of Selectmen meeting. At this point, I'll call to order, and we'll do a roll call because we have one of our members joining us remotely, but in person, we have myself. Sean Farrell is here.
Tom Myers here.
And then online, we have Bill Olson. Well, Bill, you want to say you're here?
William Olson here.
Thanks, Bill. Appreciate you coming tonight. Tonight we have some board and committee openings. We have one opening for a 3-year term on the Conservation Commission, one opening for a 3-year term, and 2 associate openings on the Council on Aging, 1 associate opening on the Finance and Advisory Committee, 2 openings for 3-year terms on the Historic District Commission, and 2 openings for a 2-year term on that same commission. One must be a resident of the Historic District, and the other one must be a resident realtor in town. And then on our Human Rights Commission, we have 1 opening that would be a member of the Hamilton Housing Authority, a resident, and then a associate opening on the Planning Board, and then 1 associate opening on the Zoning Board of Appeals. And at this point, we have 3 minutes for topics not already on the agenda for public comment. If anybody is here or online and wishes to speak, please come up to the podium, state your name and address, and you can address the crew here.
All right. Emmett Holt, 2 Manor Hill Road, Hamilton. I'm on the Environmental Impact Committee and also on the Hamilton Wenham Climate Action Team, and I've been very involved in the Hamilton Community Choice Aggregation Program, which is up for renewal here shortly. And what I have started to do last week or last couple of weeks with the kind of the community event with the merchants downtown, the fall day, was to figure out how can we really promote, the residents of Hamilton, number one, being aware of community choice aggregation and to try to drive participation at the 100% level. So I was working with the Good Energy folks, and one of the things they wanted to do is make sure that we had approval for artwork and all that kind of stuff. So I just wanted to come here, talk to you guys today about that, and give you the idea of some of the things we're doing. We didn't really kick anything off because everything was running a little slow on Sunday, but I've been working with the guys at Good Energy, and what they sort of came up with for some lawn signs that we could use is something like this. And basically what the theme is, first of all, what I'd like to do is get the high school involved in creating a theme, but the idea is to, well, here actually, these are the yard signs. What the idea here is to come up with offering stickers to all of the residents that subscribe to 100%, that they could stick on their on their mailboxes, because it's basically the equivalent of putting solar panels on the top of your house, which everybody respects people when they see those, but in my personal case, you have to cut down half the Amazon rainforest of oak trees and stuff like that. I think we've got about 6 or 8 very nice old oaks there. So anyhow, I just wanted to sort of run by you to say, what could we do? The idea with this, and I have a little sort of handout to grow, is here we are, the Hamilton Wenham Generals, the high school, to kind of take off. Everybody likes to get a star and get some recognition. So you get to earn stars for significant things relative to fighting climate action. So if you have an EV, if you've gone out and bought yourself a vehicle, you get one of these. If you electrify your house, you get one of these. If you put in, like what Town Hall is going to be, hopefully, is heat pumps and all of that, so you're a fully electrified building for housing and all, you get one of these. And everybody in Hamilton for waste and composting should start out with a star. So, to get a campaign going. So that's the idea. What I sort of had here is just kind of a summary of what it would look like. I want to give you guys your own star, because I'm sure you're already doing something for it right now.
Thank you.
And these are for the other two. But I just want to throw that out, give you a little sort of conceptual idea of where we may be going with this, and then really sort of ask for feedback, or, get your thoughts going with your experiences with other groups. But, how can we, as the, Environmental Impact Committee, work with the town to really publicize, all the do-good things for energy to hit the net zero 2040 goal. And I think that would be the name of the campaign is Net Zero 2040. And we have the residents in the town, we have the municipality, we have the schools, we have the businesses, and all of that to go and attack and get everybody working on it.
That's great. Thank you. I mean, I think, like you said, I think our contract's coming up soon with Green Energy.
Yep.
And we're,
They went out to bid a few months ago, so they're getting ready to switch the source in November, I think.
right. And folks that are, if you're listening at home or you're listening to this later, you can at any point go and you can change your amount of energy to, like you said, 100% renewable or a hybrid of it, et cetera. There's a couple different options. I think there's 3 or
Yeah,
4.
everybody defaults in at 5%.
Right.
And you can either go the cheapest to the brown power and save yourself half a cent, or go 50% or a full 100% green.
Right.
So it's the equivalent of putting solar panels on your car and high-test gasoline in your Tesla.
Right, exactly.
I mean, why buy a Tesla if you're going to fill it with dirty electricity?
Dirty energy, right, that's true. Well, thank you, and we'll give you some feedback on this, but I think it sounds great to me. I like the the badge of honor of being green here. We've been a designated green community for a bit of time now, but, as we've got this goal in 2040, we've got to really start pushing the envelope here, so.
Yeah, and I think people want to see the other people and see that there's progress being made. And I thought the idea of the stickers and putting them on mailboxes, or the merchants putting them on their window or something like that,
I think it's good.
would kick it off.
Did you happen to, before you leave the podium, last week or maybe the week before, I got a thing about a seminar, kind of webinar about electrified municipal vehicles, heavy vehicles and stuff like that. I forwarded it to Caroline to forward to you guys. I don't know if you got it yet, but I can re-forward it to you if you did.
Yeah, re-forward it. Don, we've tried to divide the committee up into different expertise, and Don Perkins is the guy that's going to leading the electrical vehicle thing.
Okay, so I'll send it to Don, but I'll also
Yeah.
CC you on it, Emmett.
That'd be great.
Send it to Tim, too.
And I'll send it to Tim, too. Is that from the DEP? I think it was from DEP, and I think I sent it to you, too, maybe. Larger vehicles, yeah. I think I sent it to you. If not, you know what I'm talking about, so.
Great,
All right,
thank you very
thank you,
much.
sir.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Emmett.
Great, thank you.
All right, any committee member board reports, Tom, that you have?
I wasn't at the last meeting, so Joe, I don't know if you made any updates on the school building meeting, but if not, I can provide some updates there.
Other than to say that, no, I don't think I did there, but I did in my town manager report, just that the school building committee has chosen a design team that's been endorsed by the MSBA, and the building committee voted to implement the contract, execute the contract with the designer. So we're gonna be starting to meet the last Monday of every month going forward.
Yep. Yeah, I didn't have really anything beyond that. I mean, yeah, we selected the designer. They did a nice presentation at the last meeting about, the process and the design phase and everything, which I thought was really interesting, and gave some examples of what, using Cutler as the example site, doing some designs of what the design might look like. And I think one of the key takeaways for me at least, was getting the community involved early and often. I think that's going to be a big part of it. There's going to be a lot of work over the next year, 2 years, and just making sure that we're engaging folks as much as we can to get them involved in the process is going to be a good part. So I thought it was a good meeting, and glad we have a regular cadence set up.
Yeah, cool. Mr. Olson, I know you're via Zoom, so it's a little difficult. Do you have anything to add for committee report?
And I'll save it for next time. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Myself, I really don't have anything to add other than hopefully you attended the street fair over the weekend here downtown. It's a good turnout, a lot of local businesses, a good way to show your support. Stay tuned for one next year if you miss it this year, but it was a good event on it, and it ended up having a nice day, so it worked out very nice. All right, on to our consent agenda, unless you have anything else to add, Joe.
No, I'll give you the town manager report this week, so.
Okay. We have a whole bunch of minutes. So we have minutes of February 27th, 2023 Select Board meeting, minutes of April 3rd, 2023, minutes of April 10th, 2023, minutes of May 15th, 2023, minutes of June 5th, 2023, and last but not least, the minutes of July 17th, 2023 Select Board meetings. Anybody want to make a motion to accept those?
So moved.
All right. A second,
Second.
Mr. Olson, thank you. And all those in favor say aye. We'll start with Bill Olson.
William Olson, aye.
Tom Myers, aye.
And Sean Farrell, aye. Our minutes are accepted. Thank you, gentlemen. If it's okay with you, we have our first item is a Goodhue Street traffic concerns with Russ Stevens, but we have our,
And Tim.
and Tim, we have our Council on Aging Vice Chair here tonight, and we're going to move up on the appointment, or I should say up on the agenda, the appointment of Peter Mayo, or Mio, I forget the name, how to pronounce it, I apologize, to the Council on Aging discussion and vote. Mr. Mayo is not here with us tonight, I don't think.
He's not on Zoom.
Not on the Zoom, but in the packets, or excuse me, Joe sent out today an endorsement from Rosie Kennedy, the current chair of the COA. The board met on Friday, is that right? Yeah. On Friday and endorsed him. He's come to a few meetings. They like him, they think he's a good fit, as well do I. If anybody wants to make a motion to accept the appointment, we'll move ahead.
I'll make a motion to accept the appointment of Peter Mayo to the COA.
I'll second that.
All right, and we'll do a roll call vote. We'll start with Mr. Olson.
William Olson, aye.
Tom Myers, aye.
And Sean Farrell, aye. The ayes have it. Peter, if you listen to this later, welcome. We appreciate your time. That's it.
Thanks, Dick.
And now, back to our regularly scheduled programming here. We have Goodhue Street traffic concerns. We have Tim Olson here to tell us what the concern's all about and what the possible remedies are.
Yeah, I'll apologize too. I failed to recognize that the chief had in-service training this week, so he must be having trouble zooming in from his location elsewhere. But Tim is well-versed in the challenges here. In the packet, you had a couple of emails from neighbors,
Some residents,
residents
yeah.
on Goodhue Street, and I'll try and pull up the map for you. But Goodhue Street gets used as a cut-through, and it's, it's kind of got some concerns for the residents there with the way people are driving through there, and they're looking for some relief. Tim?
Tim Olson, DPW Director. Joe's correct. We've gotten a series of emails from the butters along Goodhue Street with concerns about not only vehicle speed, but volume as well. People cutting, using that fork in Highland Street, coming right off Highland and right onto Goodhue to get over to Waldingfield. Looking at I was talking with the chief of police. He put out there, or he had put out a traffic device to count. I'm not sure if you got that data or not.
I don't know.
It was in the
I did.
packet.
Did I
It was
see-
in the
Maybe I
packet.
missed it.
Okay,
Yeah, I can go back to
but
it.
it's but what the traffic counter and speed, I guess it's a speed and traffic count, showed that the speed limits are actually underneath the posted speed limit of 35 miles an hour. The average speed was about 24 miles an hour. Fastest was 47, and the slowest was 7. So the average speed of the vehicles were underneath the existing speed limit.
So the speed limit's not the issue, really.
So, yeah, looking at that, it doesn't seem to be an issue. The traffic device that they use is not hoses on the ground, so you're not getting any type of slowdown because
Yeah.
of vehicles knowing
That it's there, yeah.
that it's there. It's actually kind of almost like a laser
It's like
type.
an infrared, right?
Right, exactly. So looking at the counts, it does seem like the volume is quite a bit for that small of a roadway, over 2,500 cars.
How long was that period?
It was started on August 14th, it ended August 23rd, so just
So-
about 10
Like
days.
10 days.
10 days, yeah.
or
It's like
so.
200, it's like 250 cars a day. I mean, I read the report. I mean, it's hard to, it's a great report, great data, but it's hard to compare it to, you know, another street.
Right.
Like if you did it on Highland Street, what would Highland Street say for the same duration? So I don't know if we're going to, it would be helpful to me if we're going to make some sort of recommendation that we would have a sort of a comparison. I mean, I live on Highland, I live down the street, and that's the way I go to the high school because it's the sort of straightest distance. I don't necessarily consider it a quote unquote cut through. I consider it my pathway to the high school from where I live. So it's sort of, when you say cut through, it's like, I guess I would need to understand like what we define as a thoroughfare street and a cut through street, and then we could sort of, I definitely think we need to look at it and make it a safer street, but the terminology we use, I just want to make sure what we mean when we say certain things. So that's all.
Do we have a comparable street?
Um,
Not really?
You know, we had Sharon and Bradford not too long ago, and I would consider that resident
Similar.
or the similar. We don't really have, the way I look at a cut-through is traffic using that to go from kind of a collector road to a collector road.
Right.
Not living on that road or in a butter to that road.
Right.
Getting from one place A to B. You know, Walding Field is similar to that. You know, you're
Right.
going from Highland to Bay Road. So Bill's right. I mean, we don't really know, you know, looking at the data, it does seem like it's a lot of cars, but how does that relate to some of these other roads in town? How would that relate to Walding Field itself?
Right.
Or like he said, Highland Street. So we're, you know, obviously, we've got a little bit of more homework to do. I'll talk with Chief about possibly putting something in a different location, maybe to try to get some type of data, if that's a lot of cars or not. I mean, potentially,
Right, I don't know what the comparative is to.
exactly. You know, the ways to handle volume is to make it a one-way. There's not many other things we can do there, besides if you did want to look at trying to reduce the traffic, is to create a one-way on Goodhue. That would be probably more coming from Walding Field to Highland
Yeah.
for a one-way. We looked at possibly kind of reorientating that intersection of Goodhue and Highland and teeing it up,
Split, yeah.
more of a T intersection.
Yeah, that's a tough intersection. Have there been more? Is that an accident prevalent sort of intersection? Because that intersection is a dangerous intersection. Has there been? I know you've looked at other ones sort of on 133 and places like that, but it's just a. Has there been more accidents here than a typical intersection like that?
I don't know accidents. Chief would have to
Okay.
weigh in on that
Gotcha,
one.
okay.
But I do know, you know, if you look at the fork, you know, people coming off Highland are coming straight across. It's
Just-
almost like a straight through,
Yeah.
you know, a straight shot. Then, and Highland actually bends at that place. So it does kind of present itself as a straightaway there. The idea would be to tee up the intersection to slow down traffic.
I mean, the T actually exists. You just have to. You would actually just turn the.
To one side.
Because
Yeah, I turn it-
you can't take a. That's what I actually do. I actually come to the end. I actually go take a right and go to the stop sign, and take a left in the stop sign rather than go on the angle out. So yeah, I think that's a good recommendation, regardless of what else we do. But I think that makes sense.
Right, if it's in the form of an island or something like that.
Yeah,
To
right,
just kind
exactly.
of 90 the intersection a little bit more than, there's a lot of pavement there. There's a lot of.
Right. Yeah.
area there, so.
Right. Correct. Yeah. So just so I understand. So we're obviously we would take a look at this as being a sort of a safer street, safer thoroughfare. It'd be good to see what the other counts on other streets, and then the width of the road seems obviously like a narrow road too. But I'm not sure if much we can do with the width. But is the width of the road more narrow than other roads of that nature, or is it just because of the layout that it makes it seem narrower?
I don't really think it's narrower than other streets. We may have quite a bit of overgrowth. There's a lot of trees out on that road.
A lot of trees.
You know, in good-sized trees as well. We do what we can with the brush, but some of those more mature trees, we try to trim. We probably would have to raise some of those trees or cut off the undergrowth to make it seem like more, obviously more pavement width. I think maybe it just is kind of tight with the vegetation out there, more than anything.
Can I ask if you, I mean, on the one hand, I think you want to trim the vegetation, but also if you create the sense of a wider road, doesn't that invite people to speed more?
Yeah.
Good, yep, for sure.
I mean, that's the thing. It seems like this, you know, the residents are saying it seems unsafe, but it doesn't seem speed is an issue. You know, it's more maybe traffic count. And I know that if you're out walking on one of these streets like this that are smaller in town or any town, and somebody drives by you doing 30, you think they're flying by you.
Seems fast.
You know, I drive away to work every morning. I drive this little tiny back road. There's always people walking on it, and the speed limit's 30, and I'm usually doing 20 or 25, and oftentimes they're telling me to slow down because it just seems like I'm flying through there, but I'm not. It's just kind of, you know, your perception of where you're standing and stuff like that. So that could also be a factor in this.
I did, from talking to some of the residents, I did, oh, shoot, what did I do? There we go. From talking to some of the residents, you know, one of the other challenges I think for them is a lot of them walk these streets because
Right.
it's nice out there, and, you know, dog walking and things. The intersection at Goodhue and Waldingfield is a little bit challenged because of the way it intersects, and you have to kind of look back. If you're turning right off of Goodhue onto Waldingfield, for instance, you kind of
You
have to
gotta
look
come
back
out,
against
yeah.
yourself. And I think there's even a stone wall there that challenges how people.
Yeah,
can
stone
walk
walls,
over.
yeah, lots of
Yeah.
stone walls.
And,
Yeah, stone walls.
and then the other way, people coming from Waldingfield onto Goodhue from Bay Road direction, there's a feeling that people there sometimes try to cut that turn shallow, and then if you're coming up to it, to turn the other way, then
Yeah.
some near misses and things that they
I don't
describe.
drive that way too. What's the shoulder like?
There's not.
There's not much.
There's not
It's
much.
vegetation.
It's a stone wall, trees.
I mean, is that probably the main issue, is the kind of pedestrian
Yeah.
fare on it? Is that our major safety point, probably?
I think that's been
I mean, there's not a lot of
from
room
the
to walk
emails
there,
and,
for
from the
sure.
emails and what the residents had told me, their concern is, you know, pedestrian safety on the road and being able to walk near their homes.
How's the road striped? Just center stripe? Anything on the side?
I
No,
believe-
nothing, no stripes.
I mean, I wonder if we striped an edge, you know, that would be a little bit
Might be
more
able
lane
to
for
stripe
you know what I
fog
mean?
line or something like that.
So,
Um,
so let me ask you a question in terms of just, because you mentioned the one way, right? Which,
Yeah, okay, yeah.
let me ask a couple questions about that, because I mean, obviously it does something, doesn't solve everything, but it solves something, and it's not a bad compromise, but we don't own the end of that road where Goodhue approaches Waldingfield, right? That's in
oh, I think
Ipswich,
we-
right?
I think we own it there. I think it changes over to Ipswich further down, going towards Bay
Waldingfield.
Road
Yeah, on Wallingfield, yeah.
on Waldingfield. I think we own that whole road.
Oh, you
We own
think
the
so?
end of
Okay.
Waldingfield that intersects with Highland. I don't think it changes over to Ipswich for a little bit.
We own to the river. I know that on Highland Street. We share that bridge
Right.
with Ipswich.
I've been trying to schedule some time to meet with the Ipswich town manager about this issue as well, because I think that one of the things that increased the level of concern for the residents there was the coming of development of
Development,
Aura
yeah,
on
yeah.
Waldingfield Road. They're envisioning even
More
more traffic
traffic, yeah.
trips. So they're trying to solve a problem before it becomes a problem.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, one way isn't a bad compromise. I mean, I don't know if that would alleviate issues, but I mean, the road's always been narrow. It's always been a dangerous road to walk on, regardless of what. I mean, it's always been that type of road. I mean, the good news is that there's hundreds of miles to pass on the other side of the stone wall. So I mean, there's plenty of places to walk, but in terms of walking down the street, I mean, it's not a sidewalk street. I mean, there's plenty of streets in Hamilton that don't have sidewalks and aren't safe. So I don't know if this is singled out as more dangerous than any of those roads, but it's a typical road in Hamilton with no sidewalks on it. So
Right. So Tim, I guess what's next steps, or what's your recommendation as of right now?
Well, I mean, it's, like I said, looking at the speed, and I think Chief and I talked, it doesn't seem speed's an issue out there. If it's vehicle traffic and pedestrian safety, you know, like we said, we may be able to do, I mean, the only way to handle the volume is to reduce volume by way of a one-way, or something like that. We may be able to stripe the road, give a sense of where the travel lane is for people. It is pretty tight there, though. There's not a lot of room. And that's the way that road was built. It's a country road.
Right.
You know, it wasn't made to handle vehicles as well as pedestrians. I'm not sure if there's horses out there as well.
Yeah, it probably is.
But it's a smaller, kind of more rural area. But it is used, obviously, to get from point A to point B. And I think it's been that way for a while, obviously. You know,
Yeah.
it's not just something that's just happened, so.
Yeah, correct. So sorry, and just to go back to my previous question, so in terms of Walding Field, how much of Walding Field does Hamilton own?
I think, I mean, just looking at that, I don't know, Bill, I don't know if you see that map, but I would say we
I can see
probably
it, yeah.
own fairly close from Goodhue to Bay Road, you know, maybe a quarter mile, maybe not even that much from Goodhue
Okay.
towards Bay.
And are you getting complaints from residents on Walding Field about the same type of complaints from Goodhue or not?
I haven't received any complaints. As far as I know, all my communication's been with people that are on Goodhue Street.
There's 5 or 6 houses on Goodhue,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and one of them is vacant. So, I mean, unfortunately, it's not a huge data pool, but
I guess for me, maybe it's figuring out a comparable street, or like Bill said, something on Highland or Walding Field, and see the traffic count on that. And if there's speed's a factor on any of those, and then maybe something with the intersection, and then maybe a stripe for a shoulder, something like that. And I don't know what else we could really do other than a major project there, but it's such a small street, like Bill said, and it's 5 or less residences there.
And as Joe said earlier, having a meeting with the Ipswich town manager, just to better understand maybe what that development,
What the traffic will be. if
what
it
the
comes,
traffic
yeah.
patterns are, expected volume increases, if there is any. I'm not sure what size of place this is, so.
If I remember correctly from the original planning board meetings in Ipswich, they were talking about kind of daily traffic of about 40 employees. But that at times, they also have a kind of, they're a larger company, they have employees all around the world. They have, they're putting together or planning to develop on that site a kind of a campus for like company retreats and things. So there would be times when they would have seminars and there might be several hundred people come in for a couple of days or whatever. So daily traffic was on the order of 40 employees, regular employees, and then
And that's really nothing. That's negligible, I would say.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's not supposed to be a huge. That's the whole point of that development. It's not supposed to be a huge traffic impact. It's supposed to just be more of a retreat that's used
Right.
once in a while. But yeah, I'm just trying to think out loud here. It's like, great. We talk about improving the road, like wide. You know, the concept of widening it by cutting the brush or the trees or striping it or paving it, but that's just going to promote more traffic and more speed. So it's like less improvement to the road is actually probably a better effect. It's probably, like you said,
Right.
it's probably making the intersection a little bit more challenging to sort of get onto the road, and then a one-way, and then maybe some signage. But I don't know there's much else that makes sense to do. But we should continue to look at it, obviously, to make safer streets. But yeah, if you don't want to improve the road, because people just go, more people want to drive on it if it's a better road, right? So that's a tough one.
And if I remember right before I started here, Goodhue was one of the, it received an overlay.
Yeah.
So it's got nice pavement,
Yeah.
good pavement condition compared to some other streets in town.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but it doesn't seem like that's creating speed issues.
No.
Right.
And it's just
But it's just it's a well-traveled, you know, a
Right.
nice road to
It's a
drive
nice road
on.
to
It's
drive.
not rutted or
Yeah.
potholed or,
So Joe, we have I don't know if there's any residents here tonight or on the call tonight, but it sounds like we have an open line of communication. Sounds like we're doing our homework, and we're not going to do things overnight, but we're going to look at things and make sure we make the right decision with town. But I think the communication is that we'll look at it a little bit further, and meet with the other towns. But I think there's some things that we could we could do to make it a safer road that we should continue to research, and I don't want to push it off
Yeah.
forever, but I think over the next weeks and months, we can look at this.
Yeah. We also have data, I mean, prior to the development, we have the data,
We can do post data and pre-data, right? So,
exactly.
And
So if
compare.
there is a uptick in
We can see
in
it.
cars, we
We'll be
can,
able to see it, yeah.
yeah, I guess it will be, what we can say to the residents, so we're definitely paying attention to it, monitoring it,
Right.
so. And if there's anybody online too, because there's just Tim and us in the room that wants to say anything, they're welcome to raise their hand and chime in. All right, I don't know if there's anything to really decide, but I think kind of keep monitoring the situation. If Chief has anything else he wants to input, please let us know, and then I would just say probably another traffic study in a similar-ish area and see if the numbers are, if that 2,500 is average or if it's over the top,
Excessive.
you know?
So is it, Tim, is that traffic study data, is that a low cost item? Is that just putting
Yeah.
parking something there for 10 days and then
Just put
getting
up
the
the
data out of
sensor
it?
and leave it.
we have it in-house. So our Hamilton Police have the ability to put that up.
Is that different than the thing that tells you what your speed is?
Yeah,
Yeah, that,
Or is it part of the
This-
same,
this is
is it
just
part
a-
of the same
it's-
piece of equipment?
Yeah, this is a box that just kind of, it's a traffic counter type,
Okay.
think of it as like your garage door sensor.
Gotcha, it just
You know,
sits on the
so
side of the
it
road?
stops your garage door from opening, but it's monitoring the cars and the speed. It's not like the ropes across the road.
No, yeah, we should utilize it. It's a good tool to have, so let's collect some more data.
All right?
I'm just trying to find a similar,
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be exactly the same, but if there's
some
something
like
that's
local roads.
that's comparable,
yeah.
you know?
But even putting on Highland Street, so you can see like what the difference is between, the parallel road, right? So,
Yeah, I wonder, could you put farther down Highland Street to see how many people, I don't know, you'd almost need two sensors to see how many people are turning
Right,
off.
who's going which
Right,
direction.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, I'll
Thought.
talk with Chief and see what his thoughts are, and maybe we can find kind of a road that does, present itself the similar characteristics.
All right. Thank you very much, Tim, for
Righty.
coming tonight.
Thank you,
thanks, Tim.
thank you.
All right, up next, we have a request of Charles and Mary Jo Favazzo, to be buried at the Hamilton Cemetery. Discuss and vote. We got a letter, or I should say I got a letter, and Dolores got a letter, them asking them to be able to buy a plot. They lived here in '73, had their kids through the high school in the lower grades, lived on Boardman Lane, moved away in 2015, moved to Wenham. And her husband was a member of the Finance Committee and School Building Committee. And she was active in the schools and on the board of the community house. And she helped establish the after-school program. They're requesting space in the cemetery even though they don't live in town.
and they've moved out of town to
And
the
they are-
assisted living, I believe.
Yeah, I
right?
think they're in assisted living, maybe at the Brooksby Village, I think, maybe.
Yeah,
So they're in Peabody or, where I think that's where,
I think it's
Peabody.
Peabody, yeah.
so they're in the area, and it seems like they've lived majority of their life, or at least their time in Hamilton and then in Wenham and recently Peabody. Any thoughts on this, Tom or Bill?
No, I mean, I have no issue with it. I just want to be consistent with the messages we've given previously, because I know we've had some tough discussion on this one, but it sounds like they had the ability to buy a plot because they lived in town, so that's there. That they passed, they checked that box, and they obviously, were, members of the community and productive members of the community. So I've got no issue. I just want to be consistent with other messages we've given. That's all. But I have no issues with this request based on that.
Yeah, I don't have any issues either. Just seeing their community contributions in the time that they lived here, and they put their, I think, a handful of kids, 4 children through the high school and et cetera. I think they check all the boxes for me. I don't have an issue with it. It's not like they lived here for a couple years and then moved to Florida and they want their uncle and aunt here too or something like that. Tom, thoughts?
Yeah, no, I feel the same. Yeah, they definitely have a strong connection to the community. And, the fact is, as Bill pointed out now, moving to assisted living, it seems like they, were, had to leave the town for a further reason, so I think it makes sense. I have no issues with it.
Do you feel like making a motion then, Mr. Myers?
And Joe, anything else we're missing on this?
No, I think you covered it all. Yeah, they were, basically they lived here to raise their family and were planning to stay here. I think they only left due to health issues, as they noted in the email to Sean, and
And they're friends with the McWaynes and the
Homers and
Homers and the Schumans, who are all longtime Hamilton residents as well and want to be buried near them.
I'll make a motion to approve the request from Mary Jo Favazzo and her husband Charles to have permission to be buried in the Hamilton Cemetery.
Second that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Olson. All those in favor, we'll start with you, Bill.
William Olson, aye.
Tom Myers, aye.
Sean Farrell, aye. Ayes have it. Motion passes. Thank you. Let's see, up next is appoint Michael Stoltzfus to the Conservation Commission.
No, that you have, you can
Oh,
take it out of
no.
order. You have one
I
before that. but that's up to you.
apologize, I skipped over revised asset limits for Chapter 91 senior exemptions, discuss and vote. We have had a limit, but the assessors have asked, as they often do, for us to raise it because I don't think we've had I think we've had people maybe try to apply, but the limit's been not conducive to that, and we raise it from time to time.
Right.
So they're asking that we raise it once again.
So that's exactly right. The current asset limit has limited people who have applied to the program who would have otherwise been qualified. So, if you, live in Hamilton, you might have some investments and things that total more than $150,000 for a single person, and yet that doesn't mean that you're liquid and have the ability, you'd otherwise, based on income, be eligible for a senior exemption, and you can't apply in this situation. So they're asking us to raise it to the new asset limits would be $150,000 for a single person or $200,000 for a married couple.
And what was it before, Joe? I forget. Do you know offhand? It was
91, 620.
91 something, right?
And
then-
97,
91,
575.
620, and 97, 575
Right,
for married.
right.
So.
I think this gives us a little wiggle room too for maybe a year, so we'll see. It seems like every year we're raising a little bit with as inflation and assets go.
Right, and keep in mind, we're gonna have a new senior tax exemption program on the warrant, and that'll make some additional changes, but this would allow this Board of Assessors to start accepting applications now
Right.
for the current year, so.
Right.
Once we raise it, is it now the floor, or can you vote to decrease it again? Just
You can go either way.
either way. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, just curious.
Yeah, at any point, we can kind of recall it and change it. Usually, we wait for the assessors to give us kind of a guidance on it, so. But if at any point in time we felt like we wanted to change it, we could. Any other discussion, if anybody wants to make a motion? Virginia, do you want to say something?
It's easier for Michael.
Yes, I would just ask a question on total household assets. The 100,000 for single and 200 for the couple. Assets, are that the income you're using, or that include all your investments as well?
Yeah, the assets are the investments, the income would be whatever your pension or your social security payment, that'd be monthly income. So some of the folks in town, according to the assessors, would qualify for the program under the income eligibility, but they have too much in investments that they're not qualified. But those investments aren't necessarily able to be liquidated easily for them to be able to use those to, pay their taxes. So they're asking for an increase in the asset limits to help those people become eligible for the program.
Good question, Virginia.
I think if talking about your investments and stuff outside of what you normally get from your retirements, 150,000 is awfully low.
Awfully what? Low?
Yes.
Yeah. Yep, I agree.
I will make a motion to increase the asset limit for the Chapter 91 senior exemption to 150,000 for a single person and 200,000 for a married couple.
Second that.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. I'm going to assume no further discussion. If there is, pipe up, but otherwise we'll go to vote. Mr. Olson?
I'm assuming, once again, to go back to Virginia's comment about asset levels, and I'm assuming this has all been recommended and vetted by our assessor's office. I'm gonna go with their recommendations. I'm gonna vote Willie Wilson, aye.
Yep, correct. Thank you, Bill.
Tom Myers, aye.
And Sean Farrell, aye. Motion passes. All right, and then our next agenda item, which I tried to do out of order, I apologize, is appoint Michael, and I'm gonna butcher his last name. Are you online, Michael? Is that you sitting there? Maybe? No?
Michael Stoltzfus was here. Yep, that's it.
He's
Yes.
there.
To appoint Michael Solfis to the Conservation Commission, discussion and vote. We have a Conservation Commission member here as well, and we've seen his application. We've got a recommendation, I think, from Lauren
Kathy Simons.
and Kathy endorsing him. Everything looks on the up and up. I welcome Peter's participation in the board since we've been down a few members for a while. Virginia, do you want to add anything?
Yes, that the gentleman did attend our last meeting, which was the 13th, last Wednesday, and he seemed to be quite interested. We know his resume is stellar. So he didn't want to run out and shut down his computer right after our meeting ended, so I think he likes it. So we certainly would love to have him on board. And by the way, I think he will be the 7th member of the Conservation Commission. And we haven't had 7 members, which is the top that we're supposed to have all that, and I think several years.
I think it's been about 3 years, Virginia, at least.
No, it seems longer. It's really nice to have that. And then, of course, if we get that shared coordinator with Manchester, things should be really looking up.
Yeah,
So I really look forward to working with this fella. Thank you.
awesome. Michael, do you want to say anything?
Can
I
you
think
hear
you're on mute, Michael, or we can't hear you. No, not yet.
Is your microphone on? If you can hear us evidently, so maybe your microphone's not on?
Well, we'll trust you're going to give us a glowing introduction and that we all look forward to meeting you and you volunteering for the board. So we look forward to you helping us have a full board and working with the CONSCOM over the next handful of years. We do appreciate the volunteering and stepping up to the plate very much.
I will make a motion to recommend Michael Stolfis to fill the last remaining seat on the Conservation Commission.
All right,
I second that.
thank you, Bill. And we'll take it to a vote. All those in favor say aye. We'll start with Bill.
William Olson, aye.
Tom Myers, aye.
And Sean Farrell, aye. Thank you, Michael. We'll look forward to hearing from you sometime soon.
Could we remind him to come in as soon as he can and get sworn in by the town clerk?
Yep, that's great, Virginia.
Yeah,
Okay.
the town
Thanks a
clerk-
lot.
Yeah, Michael, just so you know, after this evening's vote, you'll get a letter from the town, the town manager's office will inform the town clerk, and you'll be issued a letter informing you to come in and be sworn in and giving you all sorts of materials that new board and committee members get. So you look for that appointment letter in the next day or two.
Awesome. All right, now up next we have plan and schedule for moving town hall operations to Patton Homestead, discuss and possible vote. We've kind of kicked this one down the road a little bit in our last couple of meetings, so we ran late, but
Yeah, in your package for this meeting, I gave you a short memo for myself and a letter to town hall employees that was provided to them by Tim. We have ordered some furniture that will be useful in the temporary space, and that can come back to town hall and be their new workstations when they get back here. It's due to be delivered in the second week of October. We had funds left over from the previous allocations from town meeting for the town hall project, so those are the funds we're using for that. To be clear, the offices that are moving to the Patton Homestead include the town manager's office, the finance director accounting office, treasurer collector's office, assessor's office, planning office, conservation, and the town clerk. The inspectional services department, which includes building, electrical, and gas and plumbing, and as well as weights and measures, will be relocating to the modular addition at the rear of the Council on Aging. Our goal is to move everybody out of this building the week of October 16th. Andy Wood will be in town beginning the prior week, and he'll be here for 2 weeks. The first week, he'll be making sure that the Wi-Fi and everything is working, that we have the right number of electrical outlets and phone drops and everything that we need to outfit the town hall staff at the Patton Homestead. And then as we move in the week of the 16th, he'll be there to troubleshoot and make sure that everything is turned on properly. We're trying to learn from our move of the health folks down to COA a couple years ago, and Andy was instrumental in that, but he was only here for a few days, so we've asked him to be here a bit longer this time. You've also included in your packet some basic layouts of kind of where in the building people are going to go. There's a layout of what the furniture would look like, but we're going to give our staff the ability to be a little bit, we're going to be a little flexible with them and give them the ability to make the space comfortable for themselves. As you know, we've been closed on Fridays since the middle of August to the public. We're open in terms of the staff is here, but they're going through and determining what they need to take with them and what can be put in storage pending their return to town hall in the future.
Any questions for Joe? No? Is there any possible vote that we're voting on?
No, I didn't know if you'd want to take, I put it there just in case you wanted to take a vote to endorse the plan, but, it's an administrative matter. As I mentioned earlier, we have the town hall vote coming up at town meeting for the largest part of the project, but we also have a separate project looking at the energy efficiency improvements to the building, including, as Emmett mentioned earlier, moving the building to heat pumps and upgrading our electrical, taking us, into the solar world and things like that. So those are being done as a separate project. Even if by some misfortune, town meeting doesn't vote to grant us the funds that we've asked for to complete the rest of the project, the ADA improvements and the fire resistance improvements, even if that doesn't go forward, we'd still need to move people out of here to do the energy upgrades. So it makes sense to start moving people. I figured by starting to move a little early, it means that we can see, people might get out there and say, oh, I didn't need that, and then they'll get out there and say, oh, I needed that file cabinet.
Right.
We'll have time to get back and get it before contractors start working in the building, so
Right, before everything's
it'll make things
moved
a
and
little bit
tossed
smoother.
or covered in
Right.
storage and et cetera, yeah.
So it'll make things a little smoother in that regard.
All right. Mr. Olson, any questions or comments? I'm assuming not.
No, sorry, I was on mute. No.
That's all right.
No, the layout looks good, seems to make sense, so thank you for putting the layout together.
Yeah, that was, and again, takes a village. Tim, working with our salespeople at WB Mason, kind of came up with the best places for people. I think that this keeps all of the outward-facing departments on the first floor at the Patton Homestead. The only people that'll be upstairs are accounting and the town manager's office.
And I think obviously as we get closer to that date, start really letting people in town know that they're gonna need to go out to the Patton Homestead for town hall business, really.
We're putting together some communications, and I've actually got a meeting set up with Bobby Gates to go over how we want to roll out the information and figure another week or so, because if we do it too far out, people will get confused and start driving out to Patton Homestead before we're
Right.
there. So we'll wait till it's almost the end of the month and then
Yeah.
start.
I don't know if it's worthy of a code red call, but it could be a possibility. I'm always like Chief and I are kind of always on the same page. We're hesitant about using it for a lot of different things because it's usually just emergency kind of stuff, but
Yeah,
this might be,
that's one we could talk about. I'm like you, I'm kind of in the middle on it. It's a big enough move that it's important news, but will it be received as important news to the people who make the code red calls?
right, exactly.
So we don't want to get people thinking that we're just using this as a way to you know.
Fill
hit
their-
them with-
fill their message
Yeah,
box
fill the
or
message
whatever.
box, so, we'll talk about it a little bit and see what we think as we get closer.
All right, great. All right, next up, we have our town manager evaluation, discuss and possible vote. So this was in your packets from Friday, I believe. Should have had a PDF and an Excel. And what I wanted to do tonight is just kind of go over it generally, talk about some of the recommendations, and Bill and Tom, since you're here tonight, if you have any other recommendations or comments on it, we can kind of fill those in as we go. I kind of took a stab at most of the recommendations when I was writing up the, I'm trying to look for the consolidation of all the reports and comments. And overall, just for the folks at home, Joe's met expectations. And so just the overall comment here is, overall, Joe's a strong town manager with deep knowledge and an asset to our town. Joe meets expectations in most areas, works well with others, and keeps the town running smoothly. As a people manager and ambassador to town, there can be some areas for improvement with communication, clear, more consistent communication to the town at large, and some more motivation to execute new opportunities for employees. And Joe's done well during the budget cycle and has helped the town stay fiscally sound, even with turnover in our finance department over the last couple of years. We've had a little bit of a revolving door in there, so it's been a little bit tough for Joe and all of us to do budgeting, but we've been very fortunate that we've been able to keep on top of it, even with the turnover, which has been good.
I'm cautiously optimistic that the revolving door stops for a while.
Yes, I
in
hope so.
finance. You know, if I could, I'd just say, from my perspective, I appreciated the feedback from the select board on areas that I can improve. I think we all can, you know, look for ways to improve what we do. Certainly, we'll be working with Michelle to find some programs that could help me work on that, but more specifically, I'm going to be looking to consult with Bobby and Gates and see if there's some things that I can bring to the fore sooner than later, as far as, you know, expanded communication with the community at large. The budget document, I think, will do that, both for the community at large and for staff as well. The budget document, specifically the new budget format that we'll be using for the FY25 budget, draws a direct line from goals and programs that the select board and the town manager settle on through to how we want them enacted in the department heads, and then that communicates that to the community at large. So I'm really excited that we're finally moving forward on the GFOA budget.
Yeah.
I think that'll help us close some of the gaps there in communicating our programs and projects to the community. And like I said, I'm open to suggestions. I'll be working with Bobby, any members of the select board that have specific ideas on communication, media, platforms that I could use. We have to, you know, once we go down the road of opening a new avenue for communication, we have to make sure we maintain it. And that just becomes a little bit difficult with all the other things we have going on. So I want to find the ways to be more effective at that, but I also want to make sure we don't create things that become stagnant and aren't used properly.
Yeah. And to Bill at home there and Tom in-house here, I'll look for your input on how we kind of tackle this agenda item at the moment. I don't know if you want me to read through all the consolidated comments or the recommendations, or if you want to highlight certain things. I'm open for any kind of interpretation. And what I would like to do is see, and I haven't said this to Joe yet, but Joe's more than welcome to bring back some comments on the recommendations to see if he's already starting to do some of them, or if he has further ideas, and then we can vote on it. I'd like to maybe discuss some stuff tonight, but when the full board's back, we can vote after Joe's given us some comments back, and then finalize it. So there's a little bit of a back and forth on ideas and recommendations. So I'm open to any ideas for tonight's process.
Yeah, I mean, I think, just from my opinion, I mean, I enjoyed working with Joe. I think Joe takes constructive criticism well. I think he has open ears and open, honest, and willing to work on things. But at the same time, I think he has a good balance of having strong opinions when needed, because that's why we have them, because we like to hear his opinions, and we want to make sure that we're taking his thoughts into account. So I think it's a good balance. I also think he's been very creative with solutions. We get in some tough scenarios with making decisions in town and managing with certain budgets and stuff. I think Joe's been extremely creative trying to make those things work and trying to find funds elsewhere, trying to save costs by doing creative things. So I appreciate that. I think it would be worth looking at some of that constructive criticism items today, and then getting Joe's feedback on them. But I think it probably might be worth. I think the good stuff's easy to talk about. But let's talk about the other stuff today.
Yep, okay. Tom?
Yeah, I can just kind of reiterate some of the comments I had put together, but I mean, I think, you've done an excellent job, Joe. It's been great working with you. I think you're efficient. I think you're great at communication, making sure that all the board members understand, what's going on in the town. I like the town manager report. I think that's a great addition to get that message out to the community. I think that we're accomplishing a lot, and I think that's a testament to your leadership, so I think that's been really great. I think one of my comments that I remember is around I think the communication to the public, and that's not so much a criticism of you as it is just a challenge in general for anyone to really connect with the public. And I think, I see, I think we see it all the time where we have a lack of engagement, and I think that's, something that needs to be done probably across many towns and not just necessarily here in Hamilton. But I think there's ways that we can probably find a way to try and increase some of that engagement and communication with the town. But we can certainly work through ideas and how that might happen. But I think we've been doing great.
And I'll kind of piggyback on that. The only area that Joe really had needs improvement, and everything else meets expectations for the most part. There's a couple little lower scores, but it all averaged out to meets expectations. And on the personnel management for needs improvement, the recommendation was to prioritize uplifting leadership and communication skills throughout the targeted professional development, or through targeted professional development, and assist in the track staff goals and his own goals. I would add into there, even though it's not in the recommendation. Performance evaluations, we've talked about that a few times in the past. I know, Joe, a few years ago you were working on that. I don't remember where it ended up, and I think that's probably why this is in the needs improvement category, because I don't know if we've ever reported out to the board on those evaluations of your department heads and stuff like that.
So, okay, I can update you a little bit there. So we did finally get evaluations off the ground last year, and the way we did SMART goals type of evaluations with the department heads, and the department heads, we're working on those this year. I have asked them to get prepared for in the next 2 weeks for me to circle back to them and close the loop on this past year and set new goals for next year. We hadn't thought of personnel evaluations as, kind of something that we publicly, it's part of the personnel folder, it's not necessarily.
Yeah, and I guess that's the tricky area, and why I'm kind of discussing it tonight is because, it's an operations and a personnel thing, but I think some form of you reporting out to the board that you're doing that or part of that process, because is oftentimes it comes back to a conversation with you with the board members during the evaluation, because there's definitely things that are operational that we don't see that you're doing because some of us are just meeting with you every other week on a Monday night, so it's tough to know what's kind of behind the door kind of stuff. And you don't have to share all that personnel stuff, but you can say, hey, we established this, and here's a template for the SMART goals that I gave to the employees.
Yep.
And here's how I shared my goals and how my department heads are going to help me accomplish my goals, kind of a thing.
I can
And I think
definitely do
that's
that.
what's kind of been lacking over the last year or so here.
Okay.
And so that, I think, would be really helpful, because then we can really say, oh, well, he's actually got that, and we don't need to see the details of it, but we've seen the tracking device or whatever the platform is that you're using for it, if that makes sense.
I can do that. We'd absolutely do that. That's not a problem at all. So, sorry that I hadn't.
I think that makes sense. I agree. That's sort of the weak link, is that, unfortunately, my time with you is after hours, which when town hall is empty, so I don't get the feedback from town hall employees and staff and whatnot. I think SMART goals is a great way to go. I use it where I am as well too, because it's not just about what their job description is, but what their career wants to be. So people don't know, they can look it up, but SMART goals is about making measurable goals. So S stands for specific, M stands for measurable, A is attainable, R is realistic, and T is time bound. So it's smart, realistic goals with a time aspect to it. So you're setting them, making them, and reviewing those at measurable times along the way to say, hey, in the next 2 months do this, next 6 months do that. Let's sit down and talk about it. So I think that's a great process for a review and getting live feedback from the staff. So thanks, Joe, for doing that.
Right, and I think too, with some way to communicate to us that you're sharing the goals that we task you with to the rest of the employees, you know, department heads and stuff like that, to help you with those goals and how you're delegating all that. We really don't see that, but if you figure out some mechanism or tracking system, something that you can share with us, some of those details, so that we do see that you're, you know, not in just a silo where we tell you the goals and then your department heads are aimless, you know, that they're getting some information too, that we know that, oh, you know, if there's something to do with building inspections or something like that, that we know that Patrick has been told what the overall town manager goal is and that he's helping you accomplish that goal.
Okay, that all makes sense. I appreciate it.
And there's a bajillion different tracking systems too that help with that, and also some of the just general project tracking stuff that we're always kind of trying to keep up with as well. Because I know sometimes it's even tough for me, who's always on top of it with you, but there's definitely things that fall off that I myself often forget about as well as time goes on.
Yep.
Anything else, Bill, from the kind of general stuff? I wanted to talk a little about some of the priority goals too, but if there's anything else you want to add before we move on, Bill or Tom?
No, I think the only thing I'd comment, maybe go into some more detail, but there was a comment on there about affordable housing trust, maybe in sort of a bylaw interpretation or something. It was a very specific example. I was just trying to understand what they were trying to get at with that example. Do you know the context of that?
Yeah, so when we set up the Affordable Housing Trust years ago, the select board at the time decided to put in the bylaw that the town manager would be a member of that committee, but wouldn't be a voting member.
No,
Am I-
originally,
Originally it was a voting member, and then we changed it to a non-voting member, because it was a little bit of a slippery slope with politics and stuff like that, and so now he's not a voting member, but I don't think Joe goes to many, if any, of the meetings,
I haven't been lately, that's true.
and I guess the question is, should we reassess that role, and does Joe need to go to those meetings, or is it something that he doesn't need to do and he can just get reported back to from the chair, like many of the other boards in town?
Okay, I got that. Yeah. All right. I was on that committee when he was a non-voting member. I think, yeah, for me, and we can talk about it, it's not what we're talking about tonight, but
Yeah.
for me, it was more about Joe should not be a voting member. He's not a taxpayer within Hamilton and not a resident of Hamilton. But we need his guidance, right, and how these things affect the town. So that's really why it's important that he goes more as an advisor than it is as a voting member. But I think, yeah, now I understand the example. Thank you.
All right. I'm just going to kind of skim some of the recommendations, anything stuck out. Just as always, there's a comment about version control, and UI, we all struggle with that at times, and I'll throw KP Law under the bus, because sometimes Tom's versions of the warrant are a lot. And I will say, this is like my 10th year select board stuff, so the version control is gotten a lot lot even though it's not perfect. When Don
We those
Brewer
extra
was
dashes and
counsel,
numbers.
Bill, if you can
Remember
remember.
in the articles at town meeting for years, we had no idea why they were there. We found
Yeah.
out it was just a mistake.
Yeah,
And it carried over for like 3 years.
Yeah,
So I think Joe found that one. So
Yeah.
I think there's some wins and losses on that one, but we can always get better.
yeah. So version control has gotten a lot better, but there's always room for improvement. The one other thing was in financial management. Joe's been doing really great with that and having creative solutions and stuff. And one of the recommendations was a part-time grant writer, an intern kind of a thing. And we've talked about this for years. It's almost like when we get our audit and Jim Petrowski gives us some comment to do something, and it's the same comment he gives us every year. And, it's always a nice to have thing. But, hiring, I think, some people, as Joe has done over the last couple of years, that have some experience in grant writing, and we've taken some help from some citizens at large with different committees and stuff in town, has helped us write some grants. So we've been doing better in that area, but there's always room for improvement.
I mean, I mean, well, that's an easy math. Is there a payback on that? What's a part-time grant writer cost? And then what do we think our wins would be? So it's sort of that.
Right, like if we pay
Investment
somebody
payback thing,
$30,000 a year to write grants, do we make up that money in grants? That's the question,
Right.
right?
Yeah. So,
We have to justify it somehow.
yeah, I mean,
Right.
grant, I started out in municipal government as a grant person in Winthrop, and grew that role into the assistant town manager by the time I left. But, when I got to Winthrop, most of my, why is this thing,
Is it dimming?
I don't know.
There you go.
Right. But yeah, I think grant writers can pay for themselves. I think you have to invest smartly and wisely in them. I plan on this being something to talk about in the budget this year. It's something that has to be thoughtful about, and I will do some homework about what I think would get us a reasonable amount of grant help. I also think that I'm going to be analyzing our communications challenge and see what else is needed there. So I'm not asking for a lot more in this year's budget than just keep moving things forward like we do, but those might be two areas we may ask for some kind of investment. One may be a staff or a part-time staff member, the other one may be some kind of software program or app or something that we can that's easy to utilize. We'll make our best effort to come up with something that is helpful to the town in both those areas, and to me in both those areas.
And the next comment area was...
Do we track our grants per year that we sort of won? Is there sort of, have we seen any trend either up? I mean, obviously, there's been a lot more grants probably because of COVID, things like that, and the government funding their stuff. But do we track that at all, Joe, over the years?
We haven't really tracked it over the years. There are a couple of departments that get regular grants. Police department comes to mind, health department comes to mind. There's certain things that they have access to pretty much every year. Then there have been things that we've specifically gone out and
We've done some shared streets, and some of the previous administration had the Complete Streets grant series, and we've gotten a few of those.
But not having somebody to kind of pull all the pieces together. Grant writing is kind of a little bit of a learned art. It's not just, you need to have somebody that has the subject matter expertise to fill in some of the tougher questions in the grant, but then you need somebody who knows how to put a grant together, pull together all the supporting documentation, track the deadlines, and make sure everything gets done. We don't have anybody that does that, and right now the departments each kind of do a little bit of that on their own. Nobody does it as well as they want to. So I've got to sit with them and find out what they need to improve that area, so we can bring it forward in the form of a budget request.
And then one of the next recommendations was in interorganizational cooperation. We're talking about shared services, and one of the recommendations or comments was, when possible, schedule auditing of shared services should be considered. And I think Joe does a fairly good job of this, but we've never had kind of a cadence of audits of things. We've audited our inspectional services kind of because of the way the contract has worked with Wenham, changing hands from control and stuff like that, so we've kind of stayed on top of that. But, joint library services is one that I always want to audit because I know that we spend a lot of money in the library. Veteran services is kind of another one that I don't think we've audited in a while. But maybe some more of a cadence or a schedule on reviewing things after X number of years or yearly would be good for those shared services to make sure we're still, benefiting from it. We'll move on to goals here. So a good percentage are met for the goals that we had. A handful are not met, and some are, as usual, kind of out of Joe's control at times. One that wasn't met was develop options for a third cell phone tower site. We're still kind of working with Everest, hopefully, on a site at the Public Safety Building. And I think and I don't want to speak for Joe here, but my thought was we get a second one in hand and then start working on the third one. But I don't know if you have any other thoughts on that.
So, I know that Bill Wilson might have a little more, he had met with some folks at Everest, and we've heard back from the folks at Everest. They're kind of stuck in a little bit of holding pattern. They are finally getting some nibbles for additional antenna to go
Carrier,
on
right.
this, and a new carrier to go on the existing tower. But right now, there's been a little bit of a freeze up in development of new sites across their industry. So they're not sensing any interest among the people that they work with to build another site, develop another site in Hamilton. That doesn't mean we can't go forward and look for, do an RFP and see if we get interest.
Right.
But like we did to get Everest, I'd like to have Bill on that, because he worked in that field for so long.
Yeah, and he just had a conversation with Chris or one of the other CFO CEOs of Everest, I think, a couple
So
weeks ago.
that's a little bit, we're, in that situation, we're a little bit relying on that industry to be investing in that way, and right now, it doesn't seem like they are.
Right, and two of the other things that weren't met in the cell phone tower were looking at other town properties for viable options, and we did do that a handful of years ago when we first looked at the two sites. We haven't acquired any other land, so I don't think that one quite applies. And then the other one was expanding carriers and report on the coverage maps. And the coverage map, I talked to Chris Davis at Everest, geez, it's been a couple months now maybe, and he was gonna do a coverage map, and I don't think they've done it yet for the RF mapping to see how the tower is doing or where it's going and where it relates to the other towers in the area. So that's a little bit out of Joe's control, but it looks like we're maybe entertaining another carrier, either Sprint or T-Mobile or something that, or AT&T, I can't remember which one Bill Wilson said, but that may be in the works. And then communication website analytics, we had not met because I wasn't sure where we were on that. I know we had talked about it some time ago, but I don't know if that's one of the things that kind of fell off.
I think that's one thing that's fallen off, because I had a note to talk to Sterling about that, and then I don't know why we didn't follow up.
And
so.
kind of along with that was how many followers do we have to either Code Red or the Hamilton town page? And then I have kind of a question mark on this one, but I'm going to kind of guess it's not met, was what's our current communication protocols, cadence, and expectations? And we had talked about this as a board recently there was a question I think Caroline brought up about when we get an all-select board email, how do we respond to it? Or how do you respond to a town manager email from a citizen? And we had talked about maybe some type of a boilerplate kind of communication to say, thanks for your email, we understand your concerns, we'll get back to you when we know more information. And that would either come from myself, the chair, whoever it is at the time, or Joe. And this is another one that I'll blame myself somewhat on, because I put it in the back of my mind and haven't thought of it since I actually read the goal here for Joe a couple weeks ago. So Joe and I will get together and talk about kind of what the expectation is for a return email or a phone call or something like that from a concerned citizen, or either writing an email back or a phone call, or what the kind of time frame is on that, what's acceptable, and probably bring it back to the board and see what you guys think as far as cadence and timing on that, or expectations. And then task and support, Joe's met all of those goals, except for the only one was a Brick Ends contract, and I don't think any fault of Joe's, it's Peter Britton.
We've made several
hesitant
overtures,
on it.
and he hasn't wanted to do a contract. So I will say, we've got only a couple years left on our trash contracts with Casella. I think that Casella also does offer
A compost, right?
compost option now, and that could be something that we, seek
And
to
I would
provide a different
guess
way.
we would be proactive in that negotiation and see what we could negotiate for a rate, and see if we could get something comparable to what Peter's giving us to kind of push the issue a little bit, I guess.
Yep.
Speaking of Casella, do you know the status of Wheelabrator and North Andover and stuff? I know that plant was talking about getting the capacity or shutting down at some point. Is that still in the works? Have you heard anything?
I haven't heard anything recently. We're under contract with them for, I think, another 3 or 4 years.
I think so.
I think the DEP is going to do whatever they can to keep that plant open because
Yeah.
there are so few options right now in the state for handling trash that I think there's only 3 incinerators in the state, and then there's only 1 landfill left that's still got room to accept, last I heard. So I don't necessarily think that that's something that's gonna go away before our contract is up, but it would be better to be proactive and make sure we find out what's going on with that. Because if we have to shift in the last minute, the way we did with our carrier before I got here, then that could wind up being expensive for the town.
I wonder if we could, and this is really left field, I mean, could we, it's a crazy idea, but, I mean, what if we work with HEIC, and is there any other options? I mean, could we build an incinerator at the landfill, or an anaerobic digester, or something like that, and process our own waste from town?
So there was, Michael did a study, my predecessor.
We did an
a study.
anaerobic digester
There's a
study, and I can't remember why we didn't do it. I don't remember if it was a contracts, or there was something. We did a lot of research on it, because I remember seeing we had a big, huge report about it.
But that would, yeah.
I don't remember all the details of it, but it didn't end up being cost-effective for us, and I think that's why we let it go. But I wonder if something's changed now, who knows? I mean, it's really left field, but. Bill or Tom, any other comments? I think we've kind of hit all the boxes for now, and I would encourage both of you to look over the review and redline any comments or add any comments that you think would be helpful, and send them to Joe in the next couple days, or maybe I'll send an email out tomorrow telling the other members that weren't here. I know Bill Wilson probably won't because he's in Italy, but, and then Joe can kind of come back with some action items. And then we can.
Okay, that's good. Sounds like a good plan.
All right.
I appreciate the feedback, I appreciate the discussion tonight, I look forward to continuing it. I will say the next meeting is October 2nd. I will be.
Oh, you're out of town, right?
So I'm planning to Zoom in for part of that meeting, because there are a couple of items that I think I need to be here for, but part of that meeting, you may be without me as well.
Okay.
So maybe we can schedule this for the.
We can do it when, Bill Wilson's back just a couple days before that, so maybe we can do it the next
Meeting on the
meeting
16th?
after, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Let's do that.
All right.
Up next is review of proposed budget calendar with the regional school district. Not the first time we've seen it, but if you scroll way down in your packet, there's a handful of those meeting dates in there. And it's kind of the full gauntlet of meetings, the chair's meetings, the school committee meetings, et cetera. Only a handful involve the full board. The rest are kind of me and Joe and FinCom.
Yeah, it's, you really only have to pay attention to the first page of that last email that was dated September 7th from Vinnie Leone at the schools. They had sent, it was part of a chain of emails that went back and forth after Wenham had made some changes. Vinnie wanted me to communicate this to the boards and see if you guys had any conflicts or challenges with these days and times. I'm not going to expect you to give me those now, but if you could maybe let me know by email by Wednesday this week, we can lock up the schedule with them and then be able to go forward with our budget planning with the schools. I did tell Sean when we were setting the agenda of this meeting that I'm really pleased that the school department has been so proactive and really so early in putting this out there. This is the most collaborative they've been in setting their budget calendar with us since I've been here. And I think all the credit for that goes to Eric and Vinnie. And the administration side, they're the ones that kind of came up with this and checked with their school board chair to find out the dates were good with them, and then put them out to us. So that's helpful, having targets for when we need to talk and what we need to talk about, and what settings is gonna be, help us open the line of communication even better, so.
So if either of you have any conflicts with the kind of larger meetings, just let us know, and we'll work on seeing if we can fudge it around a little bit.
It should be fine.
Last item is just new business. Couple things to bring up. I think at October 2nd meeting, we may have a joint meeting with FinCom.
Yeah, I asked that, yes, if that's possible, and that's why, that's one of the things I want to be here for. The two items on that for the FinCom, first of all, is, I just thought it'd be good to have a joint meeting if you're both agreeable to it, to go over the warrant one last time before we give it a blessing and finalize everything. And then the new GFOA budget template document requires us to, as I said, start with goals of the boards, particularly the select board, but get the FinCom's input on guidance that we'd give to department heads. And that way there, Wendy and I can then develop the guidance document to the department heads after that. So our hope is to have a quick discussion that night, you guys, to start to help us identify the goals for the FY25 budget and what kind of guidance you want us to give to the department heads in terms of projecting programming and stuff. We can wrap that conversation up, and then Wendy and I can hit the ground running with the folks at the Collins Center and the department heads and getting that budgets start to be put together.
And then other new business, I spoke with Scott Matter in the HDC, and we're maybe looking at a joint meeting with HDC coming up in November after town meeting, or maybe in the December, depending how scheduling goes. They're donating some money for a push-button traffic light on most likely Asbury Street, where the crosswalk is, by Willow Street. And then also other kind of downtown improvements and things going on with the HDC, and so that we can kind of align stuff, and hopefully by that time we'll know if we got any grant money, and if we didn't, kind of next steps after we've written the grant for things to kind of look at to improve in the downtown area. And then also other new business, at our I think it was our last meeting, Rudy Pisano came and voiced a complaint / irritation about some ledge hammering on a construction site near his home, and wanted to work on some type of noise ordinance dealing with that. And we will kind of review what our policies are and what the state regulations are, just to make sure everything's on the up and up. I think we were, but we'll see if we can improve anything if that situation happens again for residents in the area. Any other new business from you, Bill?
Nope. Nope, sorry, I was on mute. Nope.
That's all right. Tom, anything from you?
Nope, nothing for me.
Can I ask indulgence on the new business real quick?
Yeah.
It's not a big item, and you don't have to vote on it if you don't want to, but an email from a resident with the Friends of the Cutler Elementary School had slipped through the cracks and wasn't with me when I was organizing the agenda. They're seeking permission to hang a banner, but not on the tennis courts. They actually want to hang it where we want them to hang it. It's on the COA signboard.
Was it for the book sale or something, or
It's
ski
for the-
skate?
Yeah, it's the ski skate thing. So the sign would read, ski, skate, and board consignment sale sponsored by the Friends of Cutler.
Yeah.
Third weekend in November. They're asking to hang the sign and that kind of
Location there, yeah.
structure from November 3rd to the 20th. The event is at the end of that period. And the sign would be 5 feet by 10 feet. So it's a little bit bigger than you usually approve, but like I said, at least it's going where you've usually asked
Right.
for it.
That will fit on that spot? How big is that
I-
spot?
I'll have Tim, I think 5 feet is awfully deep. I mean, a 5 foot
Yeah.
sign is kind of deep. But I'll have Tim take measurement of the the width, that has to be the main concern.
Yeah.
And make sure that, we let them know how big.
Yeah, I think we should, that seems bigger than the space we have, so.
Yeah. 5 feet by 10 feet sounds large to me.
Yeah. Bill, you have a comment?
Oh, sorry.
It's all right. I'm fine with them putting it there. We've put up stuff for them in the past.
Yep.
And it's in the right location. I just question the size.
Yep.
How do we feel about the duration, 3rd to the 20th? That's what, 2 weeks and change?
Yeah.
Maybe just do 2 weeks? Because I think that's our kind of standard limit is 2 weeks. So I guess I'll leave it up to them for what they decide for what the 2-week period is.
Okay.
Whatever, as long as it's just 2 weeks. And then I think the size, I would, if Mr. Myers makes a motion to approve it, I would say maybe the caveat in your motion is that the sign size is appropriate to the apparatus or whatever the hanging stuff is there.
Yeah, we gotta come up with a name for that, because I keep stumbling over what to refer to it as. It's just like two big wooden stakes, but,
Because I want to say it's not a signboard, it's not a sandwich board, it's a, I don't know what even they call it.
yeah, really.
Structure.
Structure. Thank you, Virginia. A sign
Sign
hanging
structure.
structure.
That's what it is.
So I'll make a motion to approve the sign hanging structure with the limitations identified by Chair Farrell.
Mr. Olson, you're up to second.
Do you want me to second that?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Second.
All right. All those who approve, say aye. We'll start with you, Bill.
William Olson, aye.
Tom Myers, aye.
Sean Farrell, aye. The ayes have it. And this concludes our regular business. Thanks for sticking with us, Virginia, as always.
Thank you. Thank you, Virginia.
Tom, you want to make
Motion
that
to adjourn.
perfect? Mr. Olson?
Second, William Olson, aye.
Tom
All right.
Myers, aye.
And myself, aye. Tom Myers, aye. We are adjourned. Thank you, folks. Have a good
Thanks,
evening.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Feel better, Bill? I don't know if you heard it.
Sorry, I was too
All right.
quick. I